Hello again, I'm Peter Van Dusen, and welcome to our continuing coverage of Vote 2008, Election Day in Canada, right here on CPAC, the Cable Public Affairs channel. Kim Brunnhuber, what are your thoughts about what you saw on the ground in Ontario?
Well, it was interesting going door to door, talking to the people, and seeing the difference between the poll numbers and what I was seeing just talking to the people. There was a lot of indifference towards the Liberals from Liberal supporters, and the people who said that they'd voted Liberal before, they said they might vote Liberal, but they would hold their nose. They had very little appetite for Stéphane Dion, and I think if the Conservatives win and win bigger than was expected, it's because, not necessarily because people are voting for the Conservatives, but just because the Liberal supporters didn't bother to show up.
Some of the most hotly contested seats, and we've talked about that, will be in that 905 belt around Toronto. One of those is the riding of Ajax-Pickering. Tell me about the race there.
Well, I think if the Conservatives can pick up a seat in that 905 area, this may very well be one of them. They put a lot of resources, especially late in the race, into this contest.
What about Wajid Khan in Mississauga Streetsville? He's a former Liberal who went over to the Conservatives and is now trying to get re-elected as one. What's happening in that race?
Yeah, that's also going to be quite interesting to see. It's been that riding is a sort of a political musical chairs. I don't think there was anybody here who wasn't affiliated at some point with the Liberals. It'll be very interesting. Talking to the voters themselves, it was very interesting. Of course, the Liberals very angry about the flip-flop and say he should be, hung and quartered for his betrayal. Conservatives say no, it's absolutely fine. But among the undecided people, probably about 90% of them said, well, as long as he does a good job, we don't really care about the issue of flip-flopping. They took either a very pragmatic approach, or perhaps they just have so little, faith in politicians that they don't really care one way or another. So
that's a good question. Professor Wiseman, Kim Brunnhuber, you wanted to jump back in?
The Liberals could always count on immigrants and visible minorities. And, when we were in Ajax, for example, Pickering, somewhere that has 30% visible minority, some of the other ridings we were doing as well, very high proportion, and a lot of these people who were diehard Liberal voters in the past said, listen, you can't count on our vote anymore. If the Tories come up with a good policy, we're going to switch, and that's something that I haven't seen in previous elections.
Well, the tightest race in the country last time around, Tony Clement won by only 28 votes.
Yeah, although I don't think it's going to be as close as it was. Well, it can't be as close as it was the first time, but I'm getting the sense that at least talking to the people there, that he might be pulling away. He has spent a lot of time in the riding. He was accused of being a parachute candidate, even though he does. I think his family owns a house in the area. I thought it was interesting. Again, he brought up the debates, and while there was no knockout blow in these debates, in some way they were somewhat boring, I suppose. But they still had a lot of influence on the voters. And talking to the voters, many of them said they were, they had no position on the election until they saw the debates, and that was when they were going to make their choice. And once the debates happened, it seemed to change their impression of the leaders. Whether that influences the actual vote has yet to be seen. Well, I wonder, when we're talking about these two issues of the economy and strategic voting, it also works the other way. And I guess I have a question. I mean, how many ridings will, with the election sort of a foregone conclusion in that we're talking about a Conservative majority or minority, how many communities will be trying to elect a MP who will sit in government and who will be part of the government, as opposed to, in opposition, just because of this economic turmoil? You want to have your community protected by the government, so will that translate at all?
I want to thank Kim Brunnhuber and Martin Stringer, our reporters on the ground, for their contribution today and for your contribution over the almost 40 days of the campaign and your riding profiles. Very much appreciated. Thank you very much.